Hello everyone and welcome back to another review. This review this time is about the Prince of Darkness, Dracula, played by Bela Lugosi. In 1931, Dracula first hit the scene, again starring Bela Lugosi, followed closely by Dracula's Daughter in 1936, and then 1943, The Son of Dracula. Bela Lugosi, being born in Romania, was kind of I guess you could call it a catch-22, seeing Vlad the Impaler, who everybody thinks that the book by Bram Stoker was written by, concerning Dracula, which it probably was. With his, if you've ever seen Bela play, I mean, his eyes, his persona, his whole way he carries himself glorifies the role. I hope that you'll pick up a copy of this for yourself and watch it. In just a minute here, I'm going to show you a clip of one of the documentaries that's included in this DVD package. This is the Complete Legacy Collection, including documentaries, commentaries, production photos, and so forth like that. I hope that you'll pick up a copy, but until that time, take a look at this clip.
Listen to them, children of the night. What music they make. Hello, I'm Carla Laemmle. When my uncle, Carl Laemmle, founded Universal Pictures in 1915, one of the first properties he considered for production as a silent film was Bram Stoker's horror classic Dracula. 16 years later, when Universal finally produced the film, I had the privilege of speaking the first lines of dialogue in the first talking supernatural thriller.
Among the rugged peaks that frown down upon the Borgo Pass are found crumbling castles of a bygone age.
It was a very small part, but the fact that I still receive fan mail from all over the world is a wonderful testimonial to the film's status as an enduring classic. Join me now as we return to the fog-shrouded Borgo Pass and take a ride together along the road to Dracula.
And just as I was commencing to get drowsy, it seemed the whole room was filled with mist. And then I saw two red eyes staring at me, and a white, livid face came down out of the mist. I felt its breath on my face, and then its lips.
Why are we scared by something? Why are we aroused by something? I'm talking about sexually aroused. Because in the case of Dracula, very often the two responses overlap.
Dead. Undead. I don't care. They all frighten me.
Oh, I love to be frightened.
Do you?
Laugh all you like. You like.
Want to be like Dracula. You live forever. You don't work. You stay up all night.
Dracula is quite simply the most media-friendly fictional personality of the 20th century, if not all time. Even people who've never read the book or have never seen the movie still know exactly who he is.
I am Dracula.
Count Dracula?
Dracula? Oh, what's he done to you, dearie? Dracula is our vampire.
Dracula? I never even heard the name before.
Today, thanks to Universal Studios, everyone knows the name of Dracula. Although at first, my uncle, Carl Laemmle, had serious reservations about horror movies, Universal eventually filmed Bram Stoker's classic 3 times, first in Todd Browning's famous 1931 film starring Bela Lugosi. Next, was the simultaneously produced Spanish-language version starring Lupita Tovar and Carlos Villarreal. Some people feel that this was the superior version from a technical standpoint, but you'll have to be the judge. And then came the romantic 1979 remake with Frank Langella. I can't imagine how my uncle, a very proper man, would have reacted to such a sexy Dracula. But speaking for myself, I would have given anything for a bit part in that production. The story of Dracula didn't begin at Universal City. As a fictional character, Dracula is more than 100 years old. First published in 1897, Bram Stoker's original novel has been frightening readers ever since. His centennial was recently celebrated in high style at events, exhibitions, and conventions all over the world. But perhaps the most revealing exhibition took place at the Rosenbach Library in Philadelphia, where novelist Bram Stoker's original working notes for Dracula were placed on public display for the first time.
What we have here at the Rosenbach are Stoker's working notes for Dracula. His earliest notes concern certain elements of plot. There are particular scenes in the novel that Stoker had imagined at its earliest stages that survive all the way to the end. A scene where Jonathan Harker, trapped in Dracula's castle, is preyed upon by 3 female vampires, who are then interrupted by Count Dracula barging into the room, saying, "This man is mine, I want him." This was one of Stoker's earliest ideas for Dracula.
Bram Stoker never visited Transylvania, but he was very well acquainted with the picturesque town of Whitby on the North Yorkshire coast, where a good deal of his novel takes place. Stoker often vacationed there and was most impressed with its ancient wind-blown cemetery and crumbling Gothic abbey.
Whitby is certainly a wonderful place for atmosphere. It would lend itself to a cinematic treatment if we could imagine Stoker thinking of that. Whitby as a popular port and as a popular sort of shipping port had its number of shipwrecks. And Stoker must have been fascinated with the idea of having a shipwreck in Dracula. So he used the shipwreck of a Russian schooner called Dmitri as a model for Dracula's arrival onto the English coast.
It was in Whitby that Stoker first came across the name of Dracula.
He discovered that there was this 15th century Transylvanian prince whose name was Dracula, also known as Vlad the Impaler due to a method of disposing of his enemies of which he was particularly fond. If you can see behind me, this is from a, again, late 15th century woodcut showing Vlad at lunch with some of his victims behind him. Stoker was the first to take the legend of Vlad the Impaler, or Vlad Dracula, and attach it to the vampire. And they haven't really come apart since.
The historical Dracula didn't inspire Stoker to write the book. There's some confusion about this. He'd already outlined the novel when he came across the account of Vlad the Impaler and simply used it as a kind of window dressing.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that little sneak peek at Dracula, the Legacy Collection, featuring Bela Lugosi. Now, as I was telling you earlier, there were other Dracula pictures released, and we're just going to go over those now as part of my Dracula collection, as I call them. We're going to start with Dark Shadows. In 1966, you know, when horror pictures and sci-fi, in my opinion, were on fire. I mean, every kid, every town wanted to go see on the weekends, wanted to go see a sci-fi picture or a monster movie. I guess to appease the nation's hunger or thirst for horror and sci-fi genre, they come up with a soap opera type horror entitled Dark Shadows. It was wonderful. I mean, we would run home from school every day just to get to the next episode of Dark Shadows, starring Jonathan Frid as Mr. Bite-em-up, Barnabas Collins, and of course we had our favorite werewolf on there, Quentin. It was great. It was it was lovely. I mean, what else can I say? Followed by Paradise Island, which was also good. It was also a supernatural type soap opera thing. And then in 1970, after Dark Shadows left the air due to its ratings falling off, an actor by the name of Christopher Lee picked up or put on the cape as Dracula. This guy right here. And he did movies such as Horror of Dracula, Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, Taste the Blood of Dracula, and Dracula AD 1972. Dracula. If you look on the back of this thing here, you can get a general idea of Christopher Lee young. I always ask myself, was he ever young? Unfortunately, he passed away not too long ago. The world is going to miss him. And then after Christopher Lee was a man came out, Jack Palance, who played in Young Guns and was the host of Ripley's Believe It or Not. He did in 1973. He did a Dracula picture, which I think was the best one ever made. I hope that you'll pick up a copy of that. And now, if we get too far down the road, in 1979, an actor by the name of George Hamill, who was making the scenes as Zorro and doing some comedies and stuff like, what was it, Casper Meets Wendy, and stuff like that. The comedian George Hamilton, he did his version of a Dracula picture called Love at First Bite. Now after that, there have been movies throughout time and cinema history that have touched on Dracula, Monster Squad and stuff like that have touched on Dracula. But in what was it? 2014. No, I'm sorry. That's not where I want to go. I want to go to 2004. Now, a different type, I want to say, or a different perspective. We're talking about Van Helsing, who always was chasing Dracula, gonna get Dracula, starring Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale. Just made the scene, and I watched it the other day and fell in love with it. I had to have it. It's now in my collection. I hope it will be the same in your collection. It is very well done. And then in 2014 came Dracula. I'll get this focus for you. The Untold. This, like I say, every picture has a beginning, and this was, in my opinion, was a good picture, but it didn't do too well at the box office. So when it came around to making Dracula Untold 2, the saints, or what they call it, the people, what may be, the powers what may be, decided not to go forth with those plans because, well, it failed at the box office. And somehow it got made into a TV style picture, which you can see on Netflix. There are so many interpretations of Dracula out there in one shape or form or another. And I hope that you, if you're into Dracula and the horror movies, that you'll get a collection like this started and go for it. Until next time, I'm James. It has been a pleasure talking to you.